to another episode on The Sick Sexy. This week is audio only on the pod while I get my new home studio set up, but I wanted to get an episode out this week after someone from our community reached out to me and asked me to share my thoughts on managing anxiety after a brain injury. So here we are, back for another week to unpack the heavy but important stuff. If you guys are new to the channel and the pod, please give us a thumbs up and like. You can follow us anywhere, including on Spotify and Apple Music and YouTube. But this week I want to delve into the world of anxiety. Now, I don't think there's a person on the planet that hasn't at some point experienced anxiety, particularly when tackling like big life events like changing jobs, losing loved ones, separations, grief, you name it. But something we don't talk enough about is the anxiety and depression that comes after experiencing a brain injury. So studies show that around 1/4 of people who have a stroke will experience anxiety within the first 5 years. I am definitely a part of that statistic. Not to generalize, but brain injuries can come with so many different, like secondary issues, and a loss of identity is a big part of that. Particularly if like your stroke has affected your personality, your ability to emotionally regulate, your physical and mental capacity, which then has an impact on the work you do, your career, your finances, which then can put a strain on like your friends, family, partners. It's a snowball effect. For me personally, I went from having a very, very clear-cut identity. So I worked 40 hours a week. I had a huge social life. I loved to travel. And then overnight, my life came to a grinding halt. And that unfortunately caused a lot of anxiety. Now you add to that the sensory overload of learning to be in the world again after having a brain injury. And that in itself is lonely and terrifying. So to give you an idea, like there have been days when I've gone for a walk on the beach to be around people, and within a few minutes I've become dizzy, disorientated, fatigued. I walk in circles. I've gotten a migraine, and what was supposed to be enjoyable like a few short months ago would have been a really nice night out now causes me a lot of anxiety. Now, I won't pretend that I have all the answers because I'm still going through the motions every day, but here is what I've learned in the 9 short weeks in managing the daily anxiety and depression that comes with managing stroke. So, actually, it's more than 9 weeks. So, I had my stroke on October the 20th. We're now near the 16th of January. So, math, what's that? That's nearly 3 months. So, 4, 8, so 12 weeks. So in 12 weeks, this is how I have learnt to manage the anxiety that's come with my brain injury. So step number 1 is radical self-acceptance. So the first 3 weeks after my stroke, I was alone about 70% of the time in hospital. The other 30% was filled with therapists, friends, family, but the nights were long and lonely. And during this time, I really only had one choice, and that was to sit in the discomfort. Now, I thought I'd done a lot of that work when I came out of hospital, but it was only after sitting down with my therapist that I took a long, hard look in the mirror and realized that I had been avoiding feeling a lot of those heavier emotions because I wasn't emotionally ready to face the giant iceberg that had come into my life and disrupted me. After that, I was ready. I was ready to sit in the discomfort and the pain and the sadness that I might never be the same again. That I may always experience brain fatigue and shakes, vertigo, nausea, and lose my sense of direction, and all the other myriad of fun things that come with a brain injury. But it's only after sitting with myself day after day, night after night, that I discovered I need to continue to process the loss of my former self. So if you're going through this, I know it's uncomfortable, but take a moment and sit in your feelings. It won't be easy, and your mind will want to do anything but I promise you this is a part of the recovery process. Self-acceptance also means forgiving yourself. Remember, this is not your fault. This is something that happened to you, and that's okay. You did not have control over this, but this is who you are now. And you may as well accept that person because they're not going away anytime soon. So get comfortable meeting you again for the first time. So the second tip that I have managing anxiety after a brain injury is finding a routine. This one has been so important for me personally, and I know that our brains love routine. That's why rehab is so important in recovering the neuroplasticity of our brains. But routine of doing the things you love is also really important. So try to incorporate one thing every day that makes you happy. And this could be something that made you happy before your injury, or it could be something totally different, or it could be that activity but altered. Now, walking on a beach surrounded by people, listening to my music was something I used to love doing. I can't walk in crowds anymore because I get really sick. But that doesn't mean I can't go for a walk on the beach. It just means I have to alter how I do that. So I might go to a quieter beach, I might listen to softer music, and whereas before the walk was like, I don't know, 45 minutes, it's now 15 minutes. But my routine always kind of starts and ends that way. I'll always like kind of end my day with a walk and listen to my music. Now, in terms of routines as well, because I suffer such severe memory loss, I find myself putting things in the same place helps me to retrain my brain. So, for example, always keeping my medication next to my bed, keeping my journal handy, having my scripts and emergency contacts on my fridge, helps me to build my routine and minimize the anxiety of, oh my God, where did I put my keys? But finding a routine also means knowing when to get yourself out of a situation quickly if you need to. So that for me means parking somewhere I can always find my car. Look, I still forget, don't worry. But it means if I'm in a really busy grocery store and the lights and the sounds are disorientating, and I start to develop a migraine and I start to not be able to focus, I know that my safe space is my car. So I always make sure that I park somewhere that is accessible, that I know where I can kind of quickly hightail it out of there if I need to. So that has really helped me. Other things that have really helped have been setting reminders on my calendar, getting Google to remind me to do basic things like eat food, because believe it or not, after you have a brain injury, sometimes obviously your appetite can change, so you can lose sensation of how food tastes, and that's definitely happened with me. Food just doesn't taste the same anymore, but because of the memory loss, I also forget to eat most days. So having a calendar or Google, or even just your friends and family reminding you to look after yourself and checking in are really important ways of helping you stick to a routine if you can't stick to one yourself. The important thing to remember is we're not expected to remember everything straight away like we used to, but the important thing is you have strategies in place to help you day to day to get back to where you were or your new normal. So my third tip, are we up to number 3, memory loss? I've already forgotten. But it's talk to your GP/therapist. Do not suffer in silence. I repeat, do not suffer in silence. Going through a brain injury is a traumatic, life-altering event, okay? I'm just going to repeat that. Going through a brain injury is a traumatic, life-altering event. And in a lot of cases, stroke survivors experience PTSD. If you are struggling with your mental health, I encourage you to speak to your doctor or a licensed therapist that can help work with you to explore medication or therapy options. But my GP has been really instrumental in not only supporting me with my mental health, but also helping me with my return to work and just helping me manage my symptoms. When you start new medication as part of a brain injury as well, it's really important to have someone monitoring you and knowing that you can go to someone for advice. I feel like a lot of young people do get lost in the system because it is so rare, and I think as well it's really easy for us to appear functional and like we're doing fine, and so sometimes the medical field can kind of, not forget about us, but certainly think that we're doing okay when we're not. So that's why it's really important to continue to advocate for yourself and speak up when things don't feel right. I mean, brain injuries don't feel right at the best of times, but over the trajectory of your recovery, you will learn pretty quickly what is and isn't normal for you. You'll know when you peak. I don't know if I've spoken about this before, but there is it's not really a theory, but it's something that happens to stroke survivors and brain injury survivors, which is the boom and bust cycle. And it's basically it actually started on the stock market, but basically what it means is you have like alternating phases of like really good growth and then decline. And so when it comes to a brain injury, you might find that you do a lot one day and you're absolutely fine, and then the next day you can't get out of bed. So it's really important to recognize your own signs of fatigue so that you can learn to manage that. And that's where your doctor can come in and help you reinforce some of those strategies so that you're not overdoing it. My next tip for you is to find your tribe. I will literally harp on about this until the cows come home. Find your tribe, your people, your wolf pack, your gang. You might be surprised that these aren't necessarily the same people that were your gang pre-brain injury. Look, the people who love you will always love you, but it's always helpful to have a support network that understand what you're going through because they themselves have gone through it too. I'm really, really lucky. My friends have rallied around me and supported me and loved me through this. But there's something to be said for meeting someone who's gone through what you've gone through and can look at you in the eye and say, wow, thank God you get it. And I've had this experience virtually. I've met so many amazing people through social media, but I also met someone just recently at rehab who, a similar age to me, had gone through the same stroke, which is crazy. And we just kind of looked at each other and we were like, what the heck are the odds of that? Like, and he was just going about his day like normal when it happened as well. So I definitely encourage you to reach out to the people around you, because I think having people in your circle who get how you're feeling can really help with the isolation and loneliness that comes with having a brain injury. Because oftentimes I think what happens is you get sick, and then people that haven't had a brain injury kind of expect you to recover like normal. And it's really helpful to have people around that understand that brain injuries don't heal like normal injuries, like a broken bone. It's up and down every day. And sometimes it's a really long process as well. So having people that are like, yeah, I get what you're going through. Like, I've been through the fatigue, and like having someone to talk to is really, really instrumental in recovery. Social media is an amazing tool. So if you type in brain injury recovery or young stroke community into TikTok or Instagram, even Facebook support groups, you'll find so much. Even if you go to a website called Enable Me as well, there's great forums on there to support people after having brain injuries. And I know just having someone to talk to can really help to ease that anxiety. So I encourage you to reach out to the people around you. And lastly, you don't have to have all the answers. I think this is really important to remember, because I feel like when certain groups of people go through what would be considered otherwise rare or unusual circumstances, we feel like we need to carry the weight of the world and become the spokesperson or the expert so that others feel less alone. But the reality is, like, we're all human and we're all just learning how to get through every single day. My stroke is considered rare, meaning that it accounts for only 2% of strokes globally. So that means I still have no idea what I'm doing when faced with daily tremors, sadness, dizziness, hearing loss, and everything else that comes along with my brain injury. But I'm trying my best, and that includes managing my anxiety well, and some days not managing my anxiety very well. and that's okay, because I don't have all the answers. So give yourself permission to feel, give yourself permission not to have all the answers. So guys, that is it from me for another week on the Sick Sexy. Oh, there goes my phone notification, probably telling me to eat something. That is it for me for another week. I will see you back here on the Sick Sexy next week for another episode. Until then, look after yourselves, be kind to yourselves, give yourselves permission to feel the good, the bad, the ugly, and the amazing. And I'll see you back here on the couch on the Sick Sexy. Bye, guys.